Sorry about that. Sorry about that, folks. There was a tech issue, but yeah, technology, it likes to give us the middle finger. No, no, I got it taken care of. But uh, sorry about that, folks. But Uh, in what's funny about referencing Jekyll and Hyde is there's a bit of that DNA if you look at the original comics that Stan Lee did, uh, and just a lot of Universal monsters in general. I mean, he would later on do Werewolf by Night, so there's that. But it is amusing seeing the recurring motif show up so consistently. You know, a case of history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Mhm. And now, given the resolution system for Biophage is a pretty simple um, is a pretty simple result die setup. Uh, is Was it one that you had planned for a solo variant? Because that kind of simple approach is one that leans well into that, or did that kind of happen by accident? Hmm. Hmm. Oh yeah. Hmm. Plus, since you're using, I believe, D6s, uh, if someone doesn't have dice on hand, which they're going to have dice on hand because we are all goblins for the shiny math rocks. Let's be honest. Yeah, you can get them for like $1 in some gas stations. Uh, I know that. I also know that's the reason why Sword World went with D6s because they were going to be the easiest to get. Uh, but worst comes to worst, you could just use pencils, just write numbers on the sides. I know I did that for years. Mm-mm. Uh, but I think given the fact that the results is based on the whole yes and no and but probably one of the more common games that that kind of resolution setup is seen is say Powered by the Apocalypse, and I'm curious if that was an influence in terms of a not necessarily a one-to-one design but some DNA of it. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. That is understandable, and I will admit when I've criticized some PBTA games, I've gotten gaslit by some of its adherents of oh well the game's trusting that people can figure that out on their own because I I had I had made the I had made a very harsh critique on a game in that family Candela Obscura about how I felt it yeah how I felt it was and I even feel this to a certain extent about Fabula Ultima about it. I don't think it's a good idea to overly rely on the genre savviness of the table because from a design perspective, you've got no way of knowing that. Uh, and the whole the game is trusting that people can figure that out on their own. That's nice, unless you're in that situation where you're being thrown into the middle of the deep end of the swimming pool and told swim. Damn it. Uh, or be, or being thrown out of a plane without being told how to open up your parachute and just told figure it out. Not everybody can go with that, and guidance is a big thing for how I look at these sort of things. But in that same vein, one of the big motifs that you have with Venom, with other things, even with the Hulk, is the fact that the control over that other side or that other form is a bit tenuous. And would it be fair to say that the bond meter is meant to represent that tenuous link where both sides are trying to have full control? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is commonplace, but
Mm-hmm.
and fun as well. Because
Yep.
otherwise the game falls flat.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which I can certainly see that. Nice. And this, especially since it is tied to emotions. Oh, and this sort of thing, you definitely saw quite a bit when it came to Venom and Eddie's relationship, uh, where a certain amount of emotional stress could create, well, in the system, cracks that the symbiote could exploit to take over.
Precisely.
Uh, and when it comes to the concept of hunger with the parasites, uh, is is that more to reinforce the dangerous aspect of having this symbiotic relationship?
That, but it's also more of a narrative thing that requires some mechanical interpretation, because biophages need to feast on human flesh in order
Mm-hmm.
to be satiated, and that's also how they improve. And hunger seemed like is both, an understandable response to that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a mechanic that I believe could be used to push players towards certain actions or towards certain movements.
Mm-hmm.
Moreover, nothing added is a certain rule that, based on the quality, quote unquote, of the or the density or the size of the biomass that they consume, the biophage gets different amounts of XP for them, which is called biomass points.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of has like a kind of a threefold use.
Yep.
All things considered.
Now, since there's the assumption that one player is controlling the parasite and the other person is controlling the host, uh, is this something that is going to primarily be built around a two-person party, or is it going to be built with a larger table potentially in mind as well.
So the game has a variety of modes, as I like to call them. There's a solo mode. It can be played with 2 players, and of course, one of them being a parasite and a
Hmm.
host and a GM. It can play with 3 players, 4 players, 5 players, and I have systems to account for all of those, especially for uneven players where it can be a lot more difficult to split them.
Hmm.
Because like with groups of like 4, 6, 2 players, there's obvious pairings. One host, one parasite, again and again and again and again. Uh, but for uneven groups, like 3 players, you got a host, a parasite. What do you do with that third person?
Hmm.
And we have various answers to that.
Oh yeah.
From having 2 players take control of the one player's parasite to that third player playing an NPC that is always with a group for one reason or another. There's various solutions to that issue.
Yeah. Because I think some people might come to the assumption that it's meant to be played as a duet or only with a specific amount of players, and it's clear that that's not entirely the case. But
Nope, but it is possible.
mhm. Now,
It's a very modular game.
given that there are four parasite types within the quick start that's currently available, I'd like to go down through those and kind of what characters would be a good touchstone or parallel, if you don't mind.
For those,
Yep. So first off, the beast.
the biggest carnage, obviously, the creature that only desires destruction and to spread fear for one reason or another.
Yep. I have heard that some of the writers for Maximum Carnage absolutely hated it, or at least hated working on it.
Now, don't know about Maximum Carnage.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're talking about the comic or
Yes.
huh. I'm surprised actually, but honestly no, that's kind of fair. I was confusing it with Carnage USA. That was a bit of a funny run.
Mhm. Uh, the Mimic.
Mimic, cannot think of a good analogy, but I think there's a lot of sorts of like creatures trying to pretend to be human. We're trying to learn what it is to be human. From the Mimic, from I don't know, Five Nights at Freddy's to what else is a good analogy? Damn, can't think of something probably right now. You got me on the spot.
Yeah,
Do you have something in mind?
I would say the the parasite that was in, well, Parasite.
Shit, you're so right. I didn't even think of that. It was even one of our main inspirations.
Hmm. Yep. Uh, but then the Tyrant.
Of the Tyrant. Uh, I'd like to say, to some extent, Johnny Silverhand from Cyberpunk, who tries to impose his ideals and his needs and his goals upon V.
Hmm. I could see that. No, I will throw one curveball towards you.
By
Um,
all means, go ahead.
Brainiac.
Brainiac. Do go on.
I
I am
know
curious.
I know some might say, wait, but Brainiac's an AI. Why would he do that? He has done body piggybacking in the past. He in Justice League Unlimited he did that with Lex for a bit before he got his ass kicked by the Flash. Oh, but Brainiac's whole thing is about collecting data and then removing the originals so that no more data can be generated. Uh, and the Tyrant is described about learning all it can about humankind, so that's immediately why I thought of Brainiac there.
Hmm. Nope. That's a fair assumption. That is very cool. That's a good idea.
Yeah. And the last one, the wild card.
I'd like to say Venom, since I think canonically he's also a bit of a wild card within the Clintar.
Hmm. Uh, it's one of those. It depends on who's writing them. Uh,
Yeah.
like sometimes he's been the outcast. Sometimes he's been worse. Uh,
Sometimes he's been an actual absolute menace.
hmm uh,
I think the wild card's got a bit of all, since a big part of it is just hunger and eating and growing in strength.
hmm And
So it gotta be a bit of a catch-all
yeah,
for the various incarnations of Venom.
and other times attempting to be more heroic. You can't see it, but I'm doing massive air quotes.
No, I fully understood.
Mhm. And that's not even getting into the whole anti-venom thing that happened. Uh,
Or Agent Venom.
mhm. Yeah, but I'm g- I am guessing that because of the way mutations are going to be working, that there that the the types there are more of a broad archetype rather than a defined class in the traditional sense.
Yeah, more of a broader archetype with a unique mutation attached to it.
Hmm. And when it comes to that unique mutation, is that the primary way to get it, or is that just an easier way to get it?
What talking about? Sorry,
Uh,
I was confused a little bit.
well, think about the powers that you see in say the different vampire clans in Vampire the Masquerade. There's the shared ones that anyone can potentially develop, and then there's the unique one that is exclusive to that clan.
Oh, yeah, pretty much like that.
Hmm. Or since you brought up Cyberpunk, the unique skill that each role has.
Yep, pretty much like that.
Hmm. Which in that case that makes sense, and that's going to go a long way to making the types be more distinct. Both between each other and within the same type. But one of the now give given the whole thing of the different modes of play you mentioned trio play. You know, if you have an extra character, would
Right.
when it comes to making that extra character, would they be made in a similar way to a host, or are there some differentiations?
Pretty much like a host, with some slight changes. Those being, well, one, you don't have the bond meter. Two, influence, which I don't know if I've changed it in a quick start. I've done a few changes since. But influence is more like a resource now to take control for a single action. For the mortals, for the normal humans, influence would be more of a resource for the humans to auto succeed in an action,
Hmm.
make them be as badass as they can be, even in their mortal state.
Hmm. Which certainly makes sense. And I one thing that I am a bit curious about is within the full book. Do you plan? I'm not expecting a whole setting thing, but do you plan on having some sort of either sample adventure or a mission generator or something like that to help get the ball rolling, especially if someone's doing solo?
How about three adventures so far, and of course story generators and whatnot?
That I can go with. Once again, that whole thing of not just throwing someone into the middle of the pool.
Yeah, that's fully understandable. I am not much of an adventure writer, I will say. in my experience in the past, me trying to add a whole adventure outline has not gone very well, as is evident with like the adventure outline for Hellborn.
Mhm.
Serviceable, definitely not the best. The adventures that I have thus far are, of course, they have a beginning, middle to end. They can be explanatory, but a lot of it is up to a GM to add certain stuff. But it's not too little for them not to be able to do anything with those.
Oh yeah.
It has the details they need, it has the stats they need, it has notes for how to improve certain things and follow up certain things. It gives them enough to work with, but also leaving a lot of things up to them, because from what I've seen from my experience as a GM, a lot of the time while I'm given an adventure, I end up just doing a lot of things by how the hell I please.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense. Uh, and it's not like even the ones that I write, I stick to. I, I've never written full. Whenever I've written adventures, I've never written full scripts. If one were to read the adventures that I have written, it'd be more like a bunch of bullet point notes at certain scenes. Uh, almost like the format for a wrestling program. You know, this segment happens here. Let people figure out the blow by blow of how it's going to happen. But all roads do lead to some kind of Rome.
Right, right.
But the third avenue to cover is the cleaners. And how
The cleaners,
how
yes.
how similar and different would that be compared to playing as either host or parasite?
So obviously the first difference is that they don't have a parasite. They are one singular whole human, and their gameplay is also a lot more different.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing about the cleaners is that their main thing is that they have the nerve, a thing attached to their back that allows them to be as fast and perceive biophages and also catch up them in combat, because biophages, they have the advantage of having two brains in one body. They can think smarter, they can strategize more.
Mm-hmm.
Normal humans are an obvious disadvantage. This allows them to not be at a disadvantage, and mechanically this allows them to perform superhuman feats, from jumping from one building to another in a single leap to uh, dodging a shot that is near this millimeters away from them. But such acts, the more superhuman and the more story and rule breaking they become, the more of their user's sanity they sap away, slowly, surely. As characters progress, they begin to lose their sanity and gain insanity. Stuff like having an alter ego that, when they don't act upon, they get lower chances of succeeding. Insanity, insomnia, a variety of stuff. I even have the book up and right with me, and some of them include, and let me just hover over. Right, indecision, which makes you unable to act first in combat. Impulsive, that you will have to either do something or lose more of your sanity. Illusions, where you cannot tell things that are real or not. Stuff like that. Moreover, some extra mechanics of them include the fact that they have minor but actual cyberware that again allows them to be one step ahead, and commendations, which are kind of like achievements that they can get through mission and give them special abilities. Such as one of them right here. I have blah, 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 here. Fuck. Asset recovery, which you acquire by recovering an asset without it sustaining any damage, and its effect being that your equipment cannot be lost or malfunction during missions. Or something else. Here. Breach Specialist, which is acquired by securing an objective in less than 30 seconds. Once per mission, you may act first when entering a hostile space, regardless of positioning or preparedness.
Mm-hmm.
Quite literally like achievements for the players.
Oh yeah. And maybe it's just me, but when I see what the cleaners are, what instantly comes to mind, oddly enough, is one faction within Tokyo Ghoul, the
Yup,
CCG.
you hit it right on the nail. That was my main inspiration for them.
Uh, Especially since they're using equipment that is very much on the bleeding edge, uh, making them borderline post-humans.
Very
And
much.
Don't ask too many questions about how the proverbial sausage is made when it comes to that equipment.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's been a fair few others. If I have to bring up Cyberpunk again, I'd probably invoke
Max Stack.
Yeah, since it's never outright stated, but there's a heavy implication that the enforcers in Max Tac are all cyber psychos.
Right, I remember.
Now, as far as of course, if you go and ask them, you'd probably one get a death stare for bothering them, or two just get shot on principle, or stabbed, or both.
Or both. Usually, sometimes worse. In my campaigns, one of my players got hit by a microwaver and then shot to death with a shotgun. So
Yeah, and I could just as easily see cleaners at being in kind of the same vein as how Nemesis is treated in Resident Evil 3 or the Sand Wraith in Prince of Persia, of this thing that you should not be engaging directly.
with Biophage, you mean?
Uh,
Or the cleaners?
that as a starting out biophage, you should avoid cleaners.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Even later on, because while Biophages definitely have the advantage when it comes to strategy and the more superhuman feats, the cleaners have the advantage of having the government and the bank and the shadow government at their back. And they usually come in squads, so there's even that.
Yeah, and you're probably familiar with the phrase accuracy by volume.
Yeah.
But it's in that same vein of there are more of them than there are of you. And if you're a no, in that regard, you could kind of see it as, and I've made this analogy before when it came to certain settings. Think of you being in the labyrinth and how you do not want to get the attention of the Minotaur.
Right.
And that's why I didn't want to limit. It would be a little too easy if I were to just reference Nemesis, which is why I brought up the Sand Wraith. It was in the second of the Sands of Time trilogy.
Unfortunately, never got to play Prince of Persia, even though I should.
The Sand Wraith is in that category of until you get a certain thing that gives you an advantage, do not try and pick a fight with it because you will lose. But even if you evade it, that evasion is just a temporary measure because it's gonna come back. And of course, at the other end, I could easily see the struggle when it comes to cleaners, especially if somebody does a whole party of them. Is how long before somebody cracks?
When that happens in the game, it's not like they go cyber psycho. If anything, it makes them more effective. A lot of them are even recruited into a special squad, which is just composed of super inhuman cleaners that are sent to deal with the absolute worst that the Biophages have to offer.
Mm-hmm. Which, that kind of thing of the monster that is man is a very common motif in Gothic horror.
Hmm.
Or what? Or the even going all the way back to something like Frankenstein of humans being worse behavior wise than the monster. Uh, but even with that, I'm guess I did notice a pattern of a short list of advantages that the host can have in terms of certain talents, and
Right.
the parasite has when it comes to mutations. And I'm guessing with the cleaner, there's that same parallel of a unique feature that's exclusive to them.
Yes, that being, of course, the instability, the nerve actions, the cyberware, the commendations. They have a lot of unique stuff to them.
Hmm.
Although they share some things with hosts, such as links or goals or, of course, talents. They can use some of the talents, and some of them that are mechanically built around the parasite have been adjusted for this.
Hmm. Yeah, that I could most definitely see. And I'm guessing when it comes to the look of cleaners, you've made it very clear that even though they're more human, quote unquote, than a host is, there's still that vibe of they're not quite no they're not quite human they're not quite human enough. There is still
No.
something that's going to make people nervous being around them.
There is this parallel between both the Biophage and the Cleaners that neither of them are human on the inside, but outside they both look human enough.
Hmm. Which would certainly fit. I mean, the somebody who's late stage when it comes to cyberware, you certainly have the ship of Theseus question that gets asked.
Right.
Uh, it is somewhat amusing that this is not explicitly a cyberpunk game, but we've referenced that a few times. And
I mean, obviously, whenever it comes to like stuff about humans altering their body
mhm,
and well, everything that has to do with transhumanism to some capacity, cyberpunk is obviously going to be an mention.
yeah, that is completely fair. Uh, Now, with that in mind, obviously a cleaner isn't going to have something like hunger, but would they have something that is a parallel?
Again, close second to come is a stability meter that just always goes down.
Hmm.
There are ways to bring it up, but there's also checkpoints in that once you cross, you cannot go back up.
Hmm. Which, in that regard, I'm somewhat reminded of the way karma worked in Tenra Bancho Zero,
Heard of it, haven't played it, haven't read it, but I heard of it.
uh, where certain archetypes can get bonuses if they have accumulated more karma, but once you get past 108, you're done. You're an Asura.
Mm.
It doesn't mean you're a full-on monster, but you are so consumed by your attachments that you're not able to see reason anymore.
You're not escaping the circle of samsara, understood.
Hmm. Pretty much. And that is definitely something I can see. Uh, and in that same vein, uh, I am curious what sort of size this particular book is going to be. Do you see it being around 100 pages as far as the full book?
A little bit above that, but yes. It's not a super huge project by all means. After making Hellborn, I refuse to do something that's like 200 pages and plus.
At least for a while until the muse says otherwise.
Until the muse says so, and unfortunately the muse is always blabbering in my ear.
Yep, that's how this kind of thing works. But while the Kickstarter isn't live yet, uh, do you have a launch window in mind as far as when you're going to be launching the Kickstarter proper?
Uh, my main estimate is around June, probably very early. Really depends on a few things, but I don't think I'm gonna miss that date. So I'm just checking on my cat. Surprised he hasn't spoken at all day. But yeah, June is my main estimate right now.
Oh yeah.
The game, if you're curious right now on where it is in its development cycle, the book is pretty much done. Graphics and everything. As always, because the only thing I cannot do is art. It's the art that's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm slowly trying to collect money for it. The Kickstarter is always going to be for that, as always. But thankfully, it's not much that needs to be done.
Oh yeah. Yep. And I will certainly be looking forward to that. And of course, once the Kickstarter proper is live, I will make sure to add in the link in the low bar.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm. But
I do have a pre-launch sort of. I cannot call it like an event, if I may.
mm-hmm.
Where for every 50 followers you get, I put up a vote for players to vote on what a new pack of content to be added,
Mm-hmm.
which I call the tailor your game thingy. What? I don't know if it's a challenge. It's not a competition. Something else. Like for the previous one, it was between a pack for something that's for some more demonic traits for the characters, and something that's a lot more about like mind control, intelligence, information gathering, and that's between being more bestial and being more artistic / flesh shaping.
Mm-hmm.
And whichever wins gets put in the game. Whichever does not make the cut competes with the next pack.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably going to give you the pre-launch link for that.
Oh yeah. And I'll make sure to add. I will make sure to add that later on. But with that said, I'll be keeping an eye out on how things develop with it. And I do want to sincerely thank you for once again taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my monastery and enjoy the madness that happens here.
And it's been my pleasure again. I always have fun talking to you and sharing about my games, so don't sweat it one bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there'll be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.